The first night I did meth, hadn't been up. This is the first time I ever tried it. I remember kind of walking outside, and it was dark outside, and I just remember just seeing just thousands and thousands of shadows in the sky. And I knew they were demonic because my spirit told me these are demonic. In my heart, I knew, I'm not hallucinating. God is showing me that if I take this path, this is what I'm letting in.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures.
We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
Few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
Because
loved.
we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
Because
loved.
we are loved.
Hi, my name is Shiloh Pisarich. I'm 33 years old. I'm going to tell y'all today about my story of going from being a professional athlete and ended up in addiction that eventually led me into 5 years of prison. I want y'all to know that no matter what and how deep you've gone, that God loves you, that there's no point that you cannot come back from. God will be waiting for you.
Welcome back to Jesus Loves Addicts. We're glad you're here. So today we are blessed to have a gentleman on who is a friend, was and is a friend of a previous Jesus Loves Addicts interviewee. Boy, that's a tongue twister. But Kane Troutman, who is actually a friend of Kathryn and mine and staff here, and also of our guest today, Shiloh Pisarich.
That's right.
And I don't know much of Shiloh's story, but I'm looking forward to getting into the details. I do know in chatting with him that, like so many stories we hear, as addiction just begins to hijack the lives of those it takes over, this led him through a 5-year prison sentence, but thank God on the other end of this, he's now 2.5 years sober and thriving. And so, Shiloh, we are really looking forward to kind of diving into your story on many levels. Let me start maybe in a little bit of a different place than we normally do, because out of curiosity, a little fun point. How do you know Kane, who again was a previous interviewee, and what's your connection there?
So I met Kane while working at the Hard Rock, and I was waiting tables, and he would come in and get food every now and then. And we just kind of hit it off, just like kind of one of them things. You meet somebody and you're just like, hey, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
And so that's how I met him. And then one night I was at a slot machine, and he came and sat next to me, and we started talking, and we ended up just finding out we had some common interests, which is drugs, and and it just thrived from there, I guess you would say. So, but we've been through some times. So,
so you met at not a great point in your lives, and it was kind of like a match made in Hades, so to speak.
Yeah.
But,
that's a good way to put
here
it,
you guys, you both made it through, and on the other end,
and still just as close now, closer now, I'd say for sure. But
Amen.
Well, he calls you brother.
That's like my big brother,
Yeah.
So I'm the oldest, so
the fog is lifted, right? So
fog
it's real
is
now.
lifted, and it's funny because he says stuff sometimes like, I was nervous because I just didn't know how we were going to be sober together, I didn't know what our relationship would be, because while he was in prison, I ended up going to prison before he came home, I had a relationship with Jennifer the whole time. Me and her were friends the whole time, but his wife, right? We were friends throughout, but then when I went to prison, he got home after that. So we've never, until recently, been able to connect as sober, following Christ together. So it was just, I think something God put in place for something bigger to come eventually,
Yeah.
So, and it's the reason I'm here today is because of him. So,
If you think about it, I just wanted to say how many people say that, or that's an actual fear. Like, we were high together. Yes, we're both sober now.
Yeah.
But what do we have? Because that's what we had. Yeah. So can we? And the family of believers, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's neat. So, well, just one other question about that relationship, and then we're gonna dive headlong into your story. But I'm curious, much because of what Kathryn is saying, right? There are a lot of times those relationships that you have in your addiction just kind of disappear in recovery because you find out that there was nothing in common other than that exchange. So I'm curious, did either of you have anything to do with the other's recovery? Like, was somebody speaking life into the other when they were still stuck, or
not until I went to prison and he came home and went through treatment. Then I was able to keep in touch with both of them, and obviously throughout my prison sentence, they were the ones really pouring into me, and I was on my own journey in prison too. So we did make like a more spiritual connection, but like I said, we had never really been around each other. So it was just little times we got to talk and stuff. But something you try to think about is like, if you want to make a change in your life, and you have to change, obviously, the people you're around, but unless y'all are on the same kind of path, So I was really proud of both of them that they were on that path. And so I knew when I came home, like I wanted to reestablish that relationship and see where it led. So,
Well, but thank God that you did.
I don't know.
Well, that's awesome. All right, so now we're gonna go in the Wayback Machine, and I was curious about that because we love Cain, and so and he loves you, so we love you, right? So
that's awesome. Thank you.
But where does your story begin? We always like to get kind of a feel for the origins.
If y'all want, I can kind of start like childhood a little bit.
Yeah. What
Just
was your
kind of break
childhood
it
like?
down. I wouldn't say I had like a bad childhood. I had a mom and a dad. We didn't have a lot. But we had what we needed. But at the age of 4, I started martial arts. And I loved it. I felt like my dad actually did martial arts growing up. So when I started martial arts, he started training again with me.
Okay.
And eventually he opened up his own school. And, I mean, it was like me and him all the time together. I trained, he trained, and he started training kids. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's such a huge part of my life. By the time I was 15 years old, I was nationally ranked in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Oh, wow. I was sponsored. I had fought all over the country. I was actually fighting adult divisions at 15.
Well, so let me take off some of the questions I had for you because I don't want to get you angry at me.
But like I said, it was just a huge part of my life, and it's something that me and my dad did together, and he ran a school the whole time. So, I mean, I was in the gym 5 or 6 days a week. So we went to church on Sundays.
You did mention that you're the oldest, so you have spouses. Siblings.
Yeah, I have siblings, yes. I'm the oldest of 4 other kids. So it's Shiloh, Skylar, Shay, Solomon, and Ryan.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So, me, Solomon, Skylar, and Shay are all from my dad, and then Ryan's with my mom has a new husband now. So, and that's where Ryan is.
Okay.
Other than that, like I said, we went to church. I would say I've always believed in I've always believed in a higher power, but I was never focused at church. I didn't pay attention. I could have told you the major stories, but I couldn't never break down any kind of details or anything.
You didn't have a relationship. You had
didn't have a relationship with Christ yet. No, but I knew. To me, the most obvious thing was there is a creator. Like things are too beautiful, too perfect. I just it tells us in the Bible that, I've shown you that there is a God through what's created. Like I've shown you.
Is without excuse.
Right, without excuse, right? So anyway, other than that, like I said, it was a pretty decent upbringing. My dad was really tough on me. He was a Marine. I was abused a little bit, I'd say, but not I don't know, maybe by today's standards for sure. But like I said, he was tough on me. He knew that I had something in me and that I could really be something with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So
I mean, more like physical discipline, though.
Right, physical discipline, yes. And so I think he believed in me, and I think I was the first kid, and he was trying to work out how to raise a kid. And,
as we all do as
right.
parents, yeah.
But my point of that is, as I got into about, 15 years old, I would say most of my life I was kind of attracted to the darker things, just the evil things for some reason, even though I was raised in a good household. And but I was kept on a pretty tight choke chain. So I think there was points I really wanted to rebel, and you see kids doing all this fun stuff, what seems fun, and like I said, I was scared to death of my dad. So for a long time, I didn't get in trouble. I didn't do drugs. I didn't do drugs until I was 18. So we'll get to that. But
so you said you were scared of your dad. So even though you knew he was loving and supportive,
he was absolutely, but I was scared.
To be feared. Yeah, okay.
I was feared of the punishment. They were pretty bad,
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
I love what you just said. You said your whole life, even though you were raised in a good home, you were sort of attracted to the darker things for some reason, is what you put.
Yeah.
As a Christian, looking back, just kind of knowing what do you think? What do you think that reason is?
I think that reason is because I think through God and through Christ, I can touch a lot of people's lives. And I think that the devil's known that since I was a child. And I think I could do a lot of evil if I went in that path. And, I explored that path. And I think he knew, like they said, we're predestined. So, and I really believe that, I could save a lot of people, or not me personally, but I believe God can use me to, to his will, and it will be very beneficial for the kingdom.
Man, I love that answer. And I'd tell you that's not where I was going at all, but I love, right? So you actually bring in another facet to that. And I just think it's worth kind of a preachy moment.
Right.
Because you were raised in a good home and yet attracted to those things, right? That is man's plight. And I think that's what I kind of want to know, because we have said this before, that more and more what we're hearing in people's origins is that they came from good homes, and the stereotype is that that's not the case. Right. But the reality is, man, this coat of flesh that we all wear is hopelessly attracted to the darker things in life. And it doesn't matter, whether you were raised in a perfect family or not, that the issue is the flesh. And so I just loved where you were going. But then you brought in the beauty of the other side of that journey, and that is that God can work all things together for those who love him, right? For good, for those who love him. So even that attraction to darkness, he now uses in your testimony, right? Which is what you're saying. I love that.
I want to ask a little more about the discipline. And I do understand today's standards, a lot of things are abuse that may not have been, but it does sound like it was pretty significant and it kept you in place. Was that because you and your dad had the martial arts together, y'all trained together, you were the oldest. Was that just on you or was that all four of you?
It was mainly on me.
Okay.
The other kids, I want to say, I could be wrong. I want to say that the Skylar, Shay, and Solomon, all pretty muchly, when my mom and dad got divorced, I think they kind of moved over with my mom. Mm-hmm. And so they got more raised by David, my mom's husband. Excuse me. And, but yeah, I mean, I think it was just because me and him were always together. And like I said, I think he knew I had potential in what I was doing. Maybe he lived through me a little bit, and kind of groomed me to do the stuff that I guess he didn't get to do.
That's interesting. How old were you when they split?
I was 16.
And you went with him?
No, I stayed with my mom. I didn't want to be with him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want. Yeah, I wanted some freedom for a little while, which was terrible. But you want me to get back to?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, I was attracted to these darker things, and then at 15, I kind of started to do, dumb stuff, break into houses, break into cars. We lived in Diamond Head at the time, and I just remember there just not being anything for like teenagers to do, it was, and
was this with like a group of friends you were hanging out with?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, guys I grew up with, we all kind of at the same time started doing stuff, and I think at the base of it, I think we were just bored. I think we were just bored because there was just not a lot to do in the area. We wasn't really driving or anything yet. So yeah, we just started this, breaking into houses, breaking into cars, sneaking out at night, just kid stuff. But it could be severe. Then mom and dad split. Dad moved to Ocean Springs. I ended up staying with mom for a little while, got in some more trouble, and ended up living back with dad. I think when I was about 17, moved back with dad. And I had kind of been on my rebellious stuff for a year and a half. So when I moved with dad, and I was getting older, and so we really started to butt heads. Yeah, and I was getting less fear, I had less fear of him. So it was getting to the point where, we were just about to fight, a lot.
At this point, had you dabbled with drugs or alcohol at all, or just periodic?
I think I tried to smoke weed one time when I was like 15, and my dad came home, and it scared me so bad I didn't do it again. And so no, I wouldn't say I tried it, but I didn't I think I drank here and there, but just very rarely.
It just wasn't a focus then.
Yeah, and I was very focused on training, and I loved it, and I was still competing, and I actually did my first cage fight at 16 in Hattiesburg, and then throughout 16 to 18, I fought multiple times. I went pro at 18, which is supposed to be the legal fighting age in the state of Mississippi. But I grew up in the sport, and my dad knew the promoters and knew everybody, so they got me in early, Yeah. So, but what had happened was when I moved with dad, we ended up he gave me the option one night, and he was like, "Oh, you think you're grown now and this and that? You can leave, You want to move out, move out." And I did. Yeah. And I actually had some people I trained with, some older people, I think 21, 22, and they were like, "Hey, you can come stay on our couch." And so I moved in with them, and pretty much they didn't look back, and I was still training, but that's when the drugs kind of got introduced. And I remember the first night I tried, I really did some drugs. I did ecstasy, and I had fought that night. I fought a cage fight that night, and that was kind of like the reward. Not, I started drinking when I moved out a little bit, but that was going to be kind of like my reward, was, all right, I'm getting to try this ecstasy for the first time. Really didn't know what to expect or anything. And so I had fought, got home that night and we did ecstasy. And I mean, I just fell in love. I mean, it was just like that, you know. And a lot of people say, you know, oh, first time, you know, you're hooked. And, you know, it wasn't a physical thing. It was just, I just felt like I had been missing out my whole life. Oh, this is what I've been missing out on, you know. And, I mean, it grabbed me. It grabbed a hold of me quick to the point where, I mean, did it that weekend. We did it the next weekend. And then I was like, hey, this is kind of expensive. You know, what happens if I get a quantity of these things and I can sell some, make some money, and do it for free?
You moved
know?
very quickly into that.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know what it was about drugs. It just never made sense to me to like pay all this money. Like in my head, I told myself like, hey, I can just get rid of all my friends are doing it now. I'll just supply it to them and do it for free and make some money.
I think part of that comes though with that aspect of the mental obsession. I need to protect this. This is doing something for me. I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and think, we talk about playing the tape all the way through in recovery, but it also works that way. It's like, I already see that this is something I'm going to hold on to. Nobody can tell me no.
Yeah.
I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to make sure that I can keep that safe.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's interesting, though, because so as Kathryn just pointed out, it's a very quick pathway to you from using to selling. Selling tends to be a part of many people's journey, but it's usually a little bit later on. But what it made me think about is that in your story, the lifestyle kind of preceded the drug, right? You were breaking into houses and doing stuff like that out of boredom and whatever else was going on. And so that kind of mindset was already there as you start to use drugs. So it makes sense that your pathway to that next step was pretty quick. Is that? And I'm assuming the guys that you are now living with are doing the same thing, and
they kind of introduced me to it, you know. So
to the selling lifestyle,
no,
or just,
the
drug
just
itself,
to doing them. I think some people just want to get high, and then I also had like I don't just want to get high. Like, hey, if I can make some money too while I'm doing it, type of mentality. So, and that was an issue, you know, because
now was your sole source of income outside of that the fighting?
I went through jobs, like I went through multiple jobs, but at the end of the day, a lot of my failed jobs is because I always reverted back to selling drugs throughout my life. You know, was like you go somewhere and you're just not making enough money, and you know the manager wants to give you what's the word? Hell, you know, manager wants to, you know, be rude to you one day. You're like, oh, I don't need this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not dealing with this, you know. So
I can make my bills.
Yeah, I can go make the money. So I would like try to, you know, work, but it wasn't like my main focus. You know, my main focus wasn't established. I wasn't. I was invested in partying and drugging, and that was what I was invested in.
Yeah.
You know. A little change in tempo was I met a girl. I ended up having a child with her. I ended up trying to do the family life. I was 19 when I had my son Ryder. Me and her together for, I think, 3 years of that time. And, you know, I moved away. I started training a little more heavy again.
Still using?
Well, I still dabbled. I say dabble, but I was using pretty often, at least every weekend, maybe a couple days during the week. And I went from doing ecstasy, and then at some point in time doing the ecstasy, you know, I tried everything, all kind of stuff. But I had fell in love with pain pills at that time.
I was going to ask you about that because that's a pretty significant part of the fighting world, isn't it? I mean, don't pain pills kind of fill the gym, so to speak, or? Well, I mean, at my level, you like what I was doing, you shouldn't be on anything. You shouldn't be taking anything. Any kind of drug, prescribed or not, is just not good for you. Yeah.
You know, and so obviously if you get hurt or something, you can, you know, you can take pain medication, but it's about stopping taking the pain medication when it's over with, you know.
What a battle that was too, though, because part of you was the training. This was something you had done. It was your constant, no matter whether your parents were together or not, whether you were disciplined or not, whether you were living at home or not. This has been your constant.
Yeah.
And so that part of your training is just, that came so easily for you to say, if you're doing this level of fighting, you don't take anything. Yeah. And yet you're a drug addict and you're selling drugs.
Selling drugs, yeah. And it affected, when I went pro, I lost, I think I have 5 pro fights. I lost 4 of the 5. The one pro fight I won was when I moved to Alabama to get away from the coast. My dad moved to a gym over there, and I had my son. And I moved over there, and that's when I got more involved and started training again. And I was working, like I said, just trying to have the family life, you know. And so
you're still training with your dad?
No, not now, not currently. Oh, at this time at 19, yes. Yeah. That never stopped really, you know. Even when I moved out, I was still training. I was still fighting.
Was he ever keen to the fact that you were using?
There was a point in time where he kind of tried to get involved, but I was like, I'm on my own. You told me, you know.
You told me to leave. I left.
Yeah, I left. And so
he backed away? Like he let that...
Well, I mean, there was really nothing he could do at that point. I think I was like, 18 at the time. Sure. Now, I think at one point he had said they were going to call the cops on me. I think I was 17 still. And I was like, call them. Like I wasn't going back, I wasn't going back. I had already found what I wanted. Like you said, I was invested. Okay. So you want to call the cops? I'm not going to be here. So did the family life thing. In Alabama, well, me and the baby mama ended up splitting, and we moved back to Mississippi. She moved to Louisiana, and again, now I was kind of like hooked on the pain pills, and that was a different type of addiction than ecstasy. Ecstasy is not this drug you can take every day. It's a party drug. You do it on the weekends. It's not something you can just take every single day, but by this point...
It's also not one that you have to take once you've been taking it every day or you're physically sick without it.
Yeah, so it's like I said, that was a different type of addiction. That was like a fun, wanting to party addiction. This was now, after a couple of years of taking these pain pills just regularly, it was a physical addiction. And I'm pretty sure like the first time I actually got physically sick, I thought I was getting sick. Like I didn't understand what was going on. So to me, I thought I was catching like a flu or something. And, I had heard stuff, but I had been doing it for like 2 years, never had kind of felt like that. And then
you'd never run out.
Right. It never ran out. And because again, like you said, I was invested. So I would try to keep my stock and sell, what I could to keep, the balance of money. And, so from that, me and the baby mama split up. I kind of went right back into partying again. I wasn't at the home life, so I just kind of surrounded myself doing that couch surfing. I'm still fighting and training, but it's not a priority.
Was your son's mother using?
Yes.
You guys were using together?
Yeah, we were using together. That's how we met, That's how we met. Okay. And it's just so hard to build any kind of real relationship on drugs. I wouldn't say it's hard. I feel like it's impossible. Yeah. It's going to be turmoil. It's going to be chaos. I don't think there's a way to have an addiction relationship with somebody and not be chaos.
I agree.
So went back to that and then ended up getting back with her again. Ended up getting pregnant and had my second son, Raiden. Again, did the home life thing for a little while. And at this point, I had pretty much stopped with the pain pills and started taking Suboxone. So that was like the new, that had really just started to get big.
And that was going to fix you.
Yeah. And like, in my head, like, oh, they prescribe this to people and, I can't take the pain pills. So, and I was working and stuff. I was still selling weed and smoking weed and that wasn't a big deal to me, compared to what I was doing. It didn't seem like it was an issue or anything. It's just weed. Yeah, it's just weed, And so what really kind of changed was when me and her had gotten a big fight one morning and she left. And I think we were both just tired, we're just tired of each other. We had a lot of issues. But when she left, I had both the kids. And then she went to Louisiana and we didn't talk for like a month. Nothing. Didn't reach out to her. She didn't reach out to me. I had both my boys. I knew they were safe. And she ended up going to maybe it's called Teen Challenge, but I think it's for adults in Louisiana. And I mean, it's a serious program and it's faith based, and it's like 7 to 10 months or something. So she ended up going to that. And again, the whole time, like, I got my kids, I'm taking care of them, I'm working. But toward the end of her, you know, her thing, we had talked about kind of like getting back together and stuff. And then I remember one day, you know, she had telling me that, you know, she had this relationship with Christ and stuff. So in the midst of all that, I started kind of, you know, delving into the Bible on my own. And a lot of people, like, I want to make this a point because, like, a lot of people learn from other people, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't really learn from anybody else. Like, I knew who God was, I knew who Jesus was, heard Bible stories, but, like, when I say, you know, I prayed that God would just, you know, help me in this situation, and in the same sense, like, I wanted to be on the same track as her, you know, and, like, because I could hear how good she was doing
was
and
different.
how impactful it was for her. So I remember trying to read the Bible 100 times. I always start in Genesis and I stop in Numbers, you know, because who reads Numbers, and, you know, like, so, and it just kind of like got boring. I always loved Genesis though. I love reading Genesis. It's my favorite book. But other than that, like, I would just get bored and I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
So I remember praying one day and just being like, God, like, I you know, your heart tells you want it. You know, it's not just like, I wanted that same kind of feeling I felt like she was getting. I wanted that too. And not only that, but I kind of wanted my family back together, you know. So I was doing it for a dual purpose. I really wanted it. And I remember opening my Bible randomly, and I opened to the very first page of Matthew. And I was like, you know, whatever, I'm just going to start right here, you know. And so I remember reading Matthew, and I just fell in love with Christ, you know, and, like, had this way clearer picture. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the Bible is not necessarily. I wouldn't suggest somebody to read it in order. I would suggest somebody to read the New Testament first. You know, whatever book you want to start in, read the New Testament, and then you'll have a way clearer understanding of what the rest of the Bible's talking about. You know, and God led me to that, and the Spirit really taught me. You know, the Spirit really taught me and gave me, like, the clearer picture of what I had been looking for. And, like, so long story short, she you know, while she's gone, I'm reading and I'm, like, getting versed. I'm writing verses down, and I'm kind of watching videos, you know, and I'm trying to teach myself. I'm trying to read. I'm trying to learn. And I remember one day we were on the phone. She was still in treatment, and she basically told me, like, hey, we're not getting back together, you know? And so I was like, I mean, it crushed me, you know, because I felt like I had just, like, you know, did all of this, and, like, I'm on, and I, you know, at that time, I just don't think she believed me. I'm telling her, you know, like, hey, I'm doing good. I'm reading the Bible, blah, blah, and it sounds good, you know, but I wasn't in treatment, you know? Yeah. So, but I think it just kind of crushed me a little bit.
Were you also dabbling still? I mean, was there?
I was taking the Suboxone. Okay. I think I was smoking weed still. Maybe I wasn't smoking weed. I can't really remember. Okay. I know I was taking the Suboxone, right? So, and when she kind of made that clear that, like, hey, this is over with. And then not long after that, I found out she had kind of, like, got another boyfriend and stuff. So, but at that day, I pretty muchly, I ain't gonna say pretty muchly, I remember laying on my mom's floor at her house and just telling God, like, hey, I tried it your way. You didn't give me what I wanted. You know, I did all this, and, you know, I tried to change, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm over it. And I'm like, and I basically told the devil, like, hey, I'm yours. Like, if you know, God didn't give me what I wanted, and I tried to do it this way, like, wherever you want to take me, I'm with that. And I was, like, committed. Like, I committed myself that day to the devil, and whatever happened that came with it.
And you were how old? Mid-20s?
I would have been 24, maybe 25. And shortly after that, I got introduced to meth.
Okay.
And
At this time, you still had your boys?
At this time, I still have my boys. While I had them, I got introduced to meth. Not gonna lie, I didn't really like it that much, but I was working 2 jobs, and one of my jobs, I was working overnight. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of one of those things like I would do, and get through work and stuff. And like I said, I didn't necessarily like it. Like the feeling it gave me, I didn't really like. But I will tell you about the first night I did it, and a lot of people that do meth, there's this stigma called shadow people, and they hallucinate and stuff, right? So, but the first night I did meth, hadn't been up. This is the first time I ever tried it. I remember kind of walking outside, and it was dark outside, and I just remember just seeing like just thousands and thousands of shadows in the sky, and I knew they were demonic because my spirit told me these are demonic. And in my heart, I knew, like, I'm not hallucinating. God is showing me that if I take this path, this is what I'm letting in, right? This is the path that I choose. If I choose this and I keep this up, this is what's going to happen. This is because it was like these shadows couldn't come to me all the way, but they were above me. It's like they were watching. They were letting me know, hey, we're here, And so it took me a little while to kind of like put that together because, like I said, there's like a stigma of people like hallucinating, staying up for days. Like I said, I wasn't up. Like I just took this drug, for the first time. So I definitely think this was a spiritual view of what happens when you let these things in your life. This wasn't a hallucination. This wasn't fake. This really happened. And like I said, it took me a while to like come to terms with that, But again, I did it for years. Never happened again. Never hallucinated. Meth never did that to me. Right? It never made me that person. I would still eat and sleep, and I guess say functional on it. But that one night was, I just knew that's what I was going for. And like I said, at that point in time, I was just like, hey, it's whatever. Yeah.
Even then, you knew that you on one hand, you're saying you knew God was showing you something, but even then you were like, well, I'm done with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew this was...
You had surrendered to the other.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
So from there, I like I said, my head is I'm not going to just pay full price for drugs. Like I'm going to make money and I'm going to use for free. And so I still have my jobs at this time. So I ended up losing my job at the Hard Rock, and then ended up, my kid's mom got out of treatment. She was doing really good, and like I needed a break. I just had these kids for like a year and a half by myself, and she was doing really good. I mean, and I just another thing that really like set me over the edge, I guess, is I was like, okay, I'll let them come live with you, and just let me get on my feet now. Give me a chance to establish myself a little better.
Yeah.
And so now I'm doing meth, and now I'm also kidless. So like the me having to be a father 24/7 took all that responsibility off of me, and I needed that, and I didn't know I needed that, until after the fact. So I can say it was a huge mistake to do that, but it led me where I needed to be now. So again, like I said, I was working, but I wanted to, I was selling meth a little bit, but it was when I started selling meth, it just blew up. I mean, it couldn't work a regular job anymore. I didn't need it. I didn't need to work a regular job. And, it went so fast, and I started making so much money. Kane's one of the people who Kane Jennifer introduced me to some higher level people, and I kind of just took off from there.
Suppliers.
Right, high level suppliers, not just, I went from there.
During this time, where were your parents, your siblings? What interaction with them did you have?
They were around. Everybody was around. They both lived in Ocean Springs. My mom was remarried. Yeah. My dad, I think my dad was remarried he was remarried at the time. They both lived in Ocean Springs. Dad still had a martial arts gym open. So they were around. Like I said, with the meth, I was a little bit more functional than the normal,
than what
person.
We typically hear about.
So I know, especially when I got to a much higher level of dealing, I know that my mom, she sat me down one day and was like, I know something's going on. I got all these guns and clothes and cars and money and just I'm not working,
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's fine. I'm not doing nothing, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you're going to lie. You're not going to just tell your parents, I sell meth, Yeah. But, yeah, my parents were around, and they were still part of my life. I'm very family-oriented. I have a good relationship with all my family, my brothers and my sisters. So they were around for it. And I know they seen the signs of, I was doing something.
Sure.
Right. And, but in 2019, I ended up, let's go back a little bit. In 2017, I think some stuff happened in my life where I had to kind of make some changes in what I was doing because of financial issues, and I had to kind of step in to a spot I shouldn't have to step in, which my dad caught some charges, and I didn't know the outcome of it. And so I moved into his house. I started paying his bills. But what I was doing, I was kind of comfortable with. But doing that and taking on that financial responsibility, I had opportunity. I had been kind of pushing to the side. And because I knew when I took that opportunity that it was just a different level of whatever, drug dealing, so. Right. But when that had happened, I just kind of felt pushed in the corner. I didn't know what to do. I just took on all these bills, and I didn't know what was going to happen. We were going to have to get lawyers. I didn't know. So I went and made that connection. And it's one of those things when you're in, there's not, it's a life, it's a prison or death kind of experience. You're in there, and that's what it is. And so, from that point, and from 2017, 2019, I was just out there. I mean, that's what I lived for, is to sell drugs. And something I want to mention is this whole time, I'm so convicted. Just every day I'm convicted, and it didn't matter what I bought. It didn't matter how many women I had around me. It didn't matter who was calling my phone and wanted to hang out, whatever it was. I was so lonely. And I just remember. It did not
fulfill you.
It at all, and I just remember sometimes I would just go and sit. I had this spot in St. Andrews, and I'd just go and sit in my car out there by myself and just, tell myself this is not good. This is not good. And, whatever, I'd do some meth and be right back at it. Didn't matter. My phone rang,
So the pain of the conviction about the lifestyle, that pain of the lifestyle was less than the pain of the loneliness, and so that kind of covered for it, right?
I wouldn't even say it covered for it. It was there, and then you know, I had people try to kill me, and I actually went to Jennifer's house right after with my car shot up, and Kane wasn't there, but I had went to Jennifer's house. Y'all can ask her about that, and it was just like this void. You know, you can't trust anybody. You don't know that the person that's next to you, you know they're not there because of you. You know, they're not there to hang out with you. They're there because you have drugs, and you know, obviously y'all do it together, you know. And so, like I said, it was just lonely, and like it was that hole. And I do think that when my kid's mom left to go to, you know, rehab or whatever, and when I really started diving into the Bible myself, I do think I was saved at that point. And I do think that I had that conviction that whole time because God was living in me. Even how I was living, like I had already, you know, asked him to in my heart. So and I never denied him. I would, you know, after that point, I'd never deny him. Like I knew, you know, you could, no matter what I was going through, like I knew there's God. I knew I'd be judged, you know.
You knew you had turned away, but it didn't negate his existence at all. But
for there still to be, because without him, there shouldn't be a moral compass. There shouldn't be a conviction of I'm doing wrong, you know. I mean, how do you feel like you're doing wrong when like you could just make up an excuse like if I don't do it, somebody else will do it, you know? Because there's 100,000 people out there selling drugs. So it doesn't matter if, to me, it was like, oh, it didn't matter if I'm the one selling it to them, you know, but I still had that conviction. Like, man, why would I feel like I'm doing wrong if I didn't have something there convicting me of doing wrong, you know? And, all right, so 2019, I left my house to go to Walmart real quick. Was pulling on the I-110 from D'Iberville, and seen blue lights behind me. I pulled over, and by the time I kind of looked around, I had 7 or 8 squad cars, undercovers surround my car. Boom. And so I was like, okay, this is not good, you know. But I had no drugs on me, so I'm like, I'm fine. I don't got nothing on me, like no big deal. So they bring me to jail, and I get my I get my jail cell and stuff, and like I'm kind of just telling myself like, hey, like I'm doing a lot, but like in the big scheme of things, I didn't think that I was doing that much, right? Like.
What did they bring you to jail for? You said there were no drugs on you.
No drugs on me. Well, they brought me to jail because they were the federal agents were watching me. So they were watching me, and they had made a controlled gun buy on me prior, a few months prior, and so they were coming to serve the warrant on me now to get me. So. But yeah, I mean, I got to jail. I still was kind of in like denial about it. I'm like, you know, I'll probably get probation, blah, blah, blah. I've never been in trouble really, you know. And but then my lawyer came to see me a few days afterward. I mean, I knew it was trouble, but I didn't know the extent, you know. Yeah. And when I talked to my lawyer and he kind of broke it down to me, I was like, this is real. You know, he was like, hey, he's like, hey, if we go to trial and you lose, you're going to get 40 years.
Wow.
You know, and I'm like,
that was for the gun charges?
Well, they had other charges on me. But the actual evidence on me, the actual surveillance evidence was me selling somebody a gun, right? But feds don't operate like that. They only need a couple people to corroborate a story. Yeah. And they call it a conspiracy. And if you have 3 people corroborate the same story on you, you can be charged and convicted. So now I'm learning this now, you know, in there. Like I said, I wasn't worried because I didn't have any drugs on me, you know. And so, and like I wasn't a felon. I did have a firearm, but it was a legal firearm. I wasn't a felon. So, anyways, but once my lawyer came to see me, like it hit. He was like, letting me know. And so, when I finally got moved, when I finally, you know, was in the process of, you know, going to court or whatever, COVID hit, slowed everything down. I was in Stone County for a little while, and I started to kind of, you know, get back on my Bible stuff and started reading again and started, you know, talking to people in there. And that was kind of like my journey back to, you know, get myself right, And so when you go and you're facing time or you're doing time, right, there's a point you have to make a path. You have to make a choice, right? You can go in and you can learn how to be a better criminal. And especially in federal prison, anything that you want, you can get because these are where
drug-wise.
Yeah, these are where these are where the bosses go. The drug kingpins go to federal prison normally. So if you want to go in there and you want to learn how to be a better criminal and you want to keep living the same life you were living when you get home, you can
That's
do
exactly
that.
what you
and
can do.
You can get groomed in there and you can make all the connections you need to. But at this point, like I was just, God just had come in my heart and was just like, telling me like, this is not the life you want to live. This is not what I want to do the rest of my life, And some people are okay being in prison. I hated it. I didn't, I hated it. It took such a toll on my family, my mom too. It destroyed her.
What was the sentence you were given? I know you did 5.
Yeah,
what,
I did
what were
5
you
years.
given?
I was given 96 months, so it's 8 years. I was given 8 years, and I did 60 months of 96 month sentence. I did 2 programs and got 2 years off my sentence, and then got something was called halfway house time.
Okay.
So that's how I got out a little early, but I did have to complete some programs. I actually had to do a year-long cognitive behavioral program. It's really hard. It's like a 18% graduation rate. It's kind of like military. Wow. You go to prison, you do whatever you want, and then you get in this program, and it's a whole different life. And you have a year of time, held over your head for anything. Yeah. So the prison I was at, they take that program very serious. So there's some spots. It's another thing like when I got in trouble, right, I was supposed to take this program in Yazoo prison, which is like a very easy, they're just letting people pass, right? But God had something else in store for me. So I had gotten in trouble in Yazoo, and I got shipped to Coleman, Florida, where their RDAP, we call RDAP program, their RDAP program is taken extremely serious, And I hated the program, but I learned so many good things from it, and it took me getting through it. Yeah. And another thing is I wasn't supposed to get a year off my sentence because I had a gun charge. And Yazoo told me I wouldn't get the year off, so when I did get put in the program, I planned on signing out. Like, well, how am I going to do this? I don't get nothing for it. And when I got to Coleman, they were moving me over there to the program, and I remember going in and just, in my head, I'm going to sign out. I'm not going to do this. And I remember talking to my mom. My mom was like, baby, please just try it. Please just make an attempt. And I'm like, man, I've failed her so many times. Let me just, do something to try to make her proud. Let me just try to get through this. And, I was sitting one day and people are coming back like, oh, I got my year off, because you can go look at how, a release date. You can go online. You can look at people's release date. So people were coming back for 3 months. I got my year off. I got my year off. And then my mom actually messaged me one day on the computer. We have computers. We can talk. And she was like, I don't know if this is like a glitch or something. She was like, but your date changed. She was like, it was 2025, I think, was my release date. And she was like, now it's 2024. And, and I was like, hey, don't get your hopes up. Like, this is, this is probably just a malfunction or something. So I actually went and talked to my case manager, and I got the year off for the program. Something I wasn't supposed to get off. A program I wouldn't have stuck in if it wasn't for my mom, pushing me.
Isn't that part of it, though? Because it wasn't about you.
And it wasn't.
You were going to do it originally for you. Yeah. You wanted the year. And then when you found out you wouldn't get it, you didn't want it. But it stopped being about you and just wants to do something for her.
I just wanted to make her proud some way I can, you can't really do anything like that from prison, you could talk about what you're going to do when you come home, but it's just like a addict talking about, getting sober, most people are like, well, how long? You know,
I'm going to be sober when I get out.
Yeah, right.
Let me ask you a question, Shiloh, just about the whole prison experience, because you said when you went in, there's two paths you can take, right? Yes. You can go in with the mindset of I'm going to be a better criminal. I'm going to lock and load with all the guys that can teach me that road. Or you can go in with a mindset that I'm going to come out and be different. Yes. And you went in with a mindset that you wanted to be different, correct? Yes. So what was the trouble you got into that got you shipped to another?
So
I'm sure it's hard to avoid some of that when you're in there. But
prison is just, they call Yazoo the zoo. They call it the zoo. It is wild. Anything and everything you can imagine is going on in there. Right now, they're really struggling with fentanyl. In prison, because it's so easy to get in. It's such a small dose, like it's so concealable. And I'm an addict, and you know, you walk past rooms, and I mean, they're either smoking weed, they're doing meth, they're doing fentanyl, and so they have Suboxone in there also. So in my head, I'm like, hey, I'll just get on Suboxone. You know, I'll do Suboxone, and that way I can't mess up. And I was still kind of making the excuse, you know, to do something, you know, and because it's hard. Like when I came in, I'm looking at a 2026 release date, you know, and it's 2019. So, you know, you want to go in there, and so in my head, I'm like, okay, this is the lesser of the evils, right? You know, it's the lesser of the evils right here, and so I started using Suboxone heavily, which you can get prescribed now for it in prison, but at the time, it was like in the works of happening. So I just, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do it. And then when they, you know, finalize it, I'll go to medical and I'll get prescribed it, you know. And I mean, man, it's so crazy because like even this prescription medication that these doctors can prescribe you, it's still affected my relationship with Christ, and I still had a conviction, you know, and I still feel like even if I was prescribed medically, I still feel like I would have a conviction, you know. Again, I made a bad choice, and I did it, and I told I convinced myself that this is just the lesser of two evils, you know. So there was so much going on. I'm like, hey, at least I'm not over here doing fentanyl. People, I mean, people dying once a month in prison from fentanyl. So you know, at least I'm not touching fentanyl. At least I'm not, you know, doing meth. You know, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna get prescribed, and then it's gonna be fine. But again, like I said, like even just with that, like there was a conviction, you know, while I was doing it, and so I got in trouble, and I got shipped to Coleman because I failed a drug test for Suboxone. And then while I was in, they call it the SHU, which is special housing unit, which is like your hole. They call it the hole, solitary confinement.
Is that like your punishment?
That's your punishment, yeah. So while I was in there, I finally, like, you have a chance to detox, right? Because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to get up. You don't leave the cell at all. Like, you're stuck there. And so,
you don't have a chance not to detox, do you?
Well, I actually, technically I did, because the guy that went to the SHU with me, he actually brought 100 Suboxone strips with him into the cell. So I remember the first night I did some Suboxone. I remember the next day I woke up and I said, I'm done. I'm done with this. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life, because the detox on Suboxone is excruciating.
Was there a little emotion in that for you about that moment?
I cried. I remember I had, you can get a radio on commissary. You can only get like medication and radios on commissary, what they call commissary, but you can't get any kind of food or anything. But I had got a radio, and then I remember like listening to a worship song, and like I just broke down, you know.
Well, even as you started to mention it seemed like you got choked up a little. So
so like and I knew, like, if I can do this, if I can get through this with it right here in my face, right, like it's in the cell, I can do it, you know, and not go through this pain. And when I say pain, we're talking about a month. We're not talking about a couple of days.
Not 72 hours, not a week.
This is a major, there's no experience that I've been through worse like that. It's miserable. So, but I kept telling myself, and I kept praying, and I just was like, if I can do this now, this will give me the strength that when I get home and I'm around it, I can say no.
Yeah.
You know, because there's going to be a point in your life that you'll be around drugs more than likely. You know, whether you're living sober, there might be, especially if you want to evangelize or if you want to talk to people, you might have to go into these areas. You might have to put yourself in these situations where there is going to be drugs around, and you have got, you know, where's that control going to come from if you haven't been around it, right? It's good to go to treatment and be around everybody doing the right thing and all that, but what happens when you get out?
Yeah.
You know, and it's accessible then, right? Because in prison it's accessible. At that point in time, it was accessible to me, but I was like, if I can fight this, and I can do this, this will give me the power to really, when I get home, to be able to say no. And that's what I did. I went through that detox with it right in my face, and that's you know, my 2.5 year right there. That was it. I think it was January 17th, I want to say.
Wow.
I made that decision and had got in trouble and just said, I can't do this no more. I don't want to do this. I want to be sober. And I love to be sober. And I think it takes really going down through there to realize like how good you can feel sober and like to, you know, understand how good life is without drugs and without the chaos. And I've just been blessed since then, since I made that decision.
So you got out of prison this year?
I got out of prison this year,
This year. What month?
In August.
In August.
Okay.
You know, I got out in August.
So to answer that question that you kind of, that Cain asked you, right? I didn't know what our relationship was. What are your relationships like now? You said, I love recovery. How is it different for you? What are the relationships like now?
Just depending on who you surround yourself with. Like, you know, again, God will put people in your life, right? Like, just follow His will, live by His word, and He will set a path out for you, and He'll put people in your life and people that care about you. You know, people that care about how you're doing, that want to help you succeed in life, and also, you know, live, you know, faithfully. So my relationship have been great. Like my family is just so ecstatic I'm home. I actually got, you know, my two youngest brothers were kind of struggling when I got home, and I've been able to come home. I did lose my dad to prison, and I'm the oldest, so I'm pretty much you know, my brother came to me the other day and he's like, man, since we lost dad and you've been home, he's like, you know, you're like dad now, you know, and so I'm that figure now, and so it's a lot of weight, but I like it. Like I work good under stress and I work good under pressure. So, and it keeps me motivated, right? To say, hey, it's not just me anymore. Like I got a whole family looking at me now to lead and to, you know, be that person that my dad can't be anymore, you know? So, I met a girl since I've been home. That's been going really good for me. You know, we're going to church together, and, I'm helping her on her spiritual journey because I think she's had a little bit of, you know, she's been introduced, but hopefully we can just build on that and build a foundation for each other, you know.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can't tell you how many times what comes after I met somebody is not good, right?
Yeah, right.
Many times.
Yeah.
And that brings back. So for sure, you know, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's you know, hopefully you've met the right person, because the wrong people, man, will now, okay, so you said something that as a counselor raises an eyebrow, right? So you said, especially if you're going to kind of, you know, reach out to people, you might have to go into areas that are bad. Now, somebody newly in recovery, that might be a tall order, right? It's probably not a great idea to go in and rescue people in bad areas if you're newly in recovery. Would you agree with that? I would
absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So are you feeling like you're at a place where you can do that, or are you more kind of helping people who come out of those places and talk to you?
I right now, because I'm so fresh out of prison, I'm trying to establish myself in the world again.
Amen.
You know, but do I feel like I could go into a drug house? Absolutely. I have my want and craving to do drugs is non-existent.
Yeah.
It's non-existent anymore. I don't have that want. I don't have that craving. I don't think about drugs. My first year now, drug nightmares, wanting to do drugs. I mean, that was that strong craving. You know, even like I said, even with the Suboxone, I had something to kind of cope with that. Now I don't have anything to cope with that, and I don't want it. So do I think I could do that now? Yes. Have I really started to do that? No. If the opportunity comes to me, I would be very willing. And I think, and then obviously I think that's something God's given me is a shield from that. That's part of my armor now. Is I don't have a craving. I do talk to people. I do talk to a few people. There's some friends I had that were, I know it's hard to make good, connections while you're on drugs, but there are some friends I had that are still indulging, and I've seen a couple of them, and, I've talked, and, I've let them know, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I stand for, and I love you, you know what I'm saying, and I think you should stop, and I think you should get treatment, or I think you should go to church. I'm not at the point of, I want somebody to want it before I really invest my time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if somebody is willing to come to me, or I talk to, and is willing to, and and I feel like I need to be invested in their life, I feel like I'll be led to do that, and I'll know, hey, this person is somebody I need to focus on. This is somebody I need to keep in touch with. This is somebody I need to push,
Well, the enemy is crafty, right?
Yes.
And so you have to make sure that God is giving you the opportunity to serve this person, or is Satan throwing a decoy to draw you away, right? Because he still hunts the strays, Satan, right? That's and so you do, so I like how you're saying it. And for anybody listening that is thinking, it's a noble desire to want to go in and kind of rescue everybody, but we have to apply wisdom to that desire. And so patience may be the name of the game. God will put people in your life that you'll be able to help, right? Without having to go diving back into that pond.
Jesus didn't send them out one by themselves.
Yeah, 2 by 2, that's right.
I want to say this. This is kind of a vulnerable moment. So, as you know, I didn't meet him until today. But I knew his first name. And so my daughter is now 10 months in recovery. And I knew she had a friend named Shiloh. And so I met him here, coming up here, and I was like, and so incidentally, when you got out, she was hanging out with you, and I have her own location. I'm like, I don't know him. And what she said to me that I didn't tell you when we were down there, she was like, you don't understand. He's like really good. He loves Jesus, and he's talking to me about scriptures. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I've heard that before. So just vulnerable moment, literally, because I realized I knew she wasn't lying, but I was still like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, thank God, even because I want more for her than just to be sober. I do. And I'm like, thank God that when the opportunity was there, that you were speaking that truth to her. Yeah. Because she may hear it from a friend more than she would me. So thank you.
Well, I think that she's got a good testimony.
Yeah.
She gave it to me. She's got a really good testimony. So I try to, key that
so
into
thank
her.
You.
And you're welcome.
I'm gonna say that.
Well, Shiloh, you you have a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's God is clearly gifted you, and so I'm sure you're going to be very. You'll be a tool in his hand, no doubt, for his good glory. I do want to just say, for anybody listening, as we bring this in for a landing here, Shiloh, thank you so much. And,
thank y'all.
And, once again, I was just talking about this. I think the thing that blows me away the most about the stories we hear, including yours, is again how God pursues us in his love. I mean, if you can't just, be blown away by that, it truly is amazing. He pursued Shiloh, he's pursuing you. He pursued Shiloh into the darkness of prisons. There's no place he's afraid to go. Mm-hmm. He's the one that can pursue us into the dark places. We have to be a little more wise.
Pursued you even after you said, I don't want anything to do with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, what a great point, right? Mm-hmm. Because, he's not going to let go. Yeah, that was a dramatic moment, right? Here, we just had an interview with a gentleman who denied him at one point. Well, not denied his existence, not denied who he was, but denied his discipleship of him. Yes. And I'm done with you. And yet, God pursued him. And so I really want to I've said this before, and I'm going to say this now. If you have another breath, you have another opportunity. Yes. That's it. If you're alive, if you have another breath, you have another opportunity. It means he hasn't given up on you. So please grab hold of that. There's a better life waiting for you. come join us. Jesus loves addicts. He loves you. And we'd love to hear your story. Hop on to JesusLovesAddicts.com. And thanks again for being here. Take care.